Good morning. It is Friday morning, and it's our last day of Vacation Bible School here at Northminster on our week of being a part of the Rocky Railway VBS. It's been a wonderful week this week of learning about Jesus' power in our lives, and I'm really glad you're joining me this morning to be a part of this morning devotion. I'm Pastor Pete, one of the pastors at Northminster Presbyterian Church, and I just wanted this devotional thought that's going to keep you in line with the theme for Vacation Bible School that we'll be looking at today, or this evening. So it's the last day of VBS. All week we've been learning about how Jesus' power helps us, and today we're learning about how Jesus' power helps us to be good friends. Now, we're going to be looking at the scriptures today, one where Jesus is with his disciples in the upper room, and he says to them, "Love each other as I have loved you." You might remember then that Jesus washes their feet and then shares a meal with them. Later on, we're also going to look at Acts in chapter 2 and then chapter 4 about the early church and how they began to worship and fellowship together. This is in Acts chapter 2. It says they devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching and to fellowship and to the breaking of bread and to prayer. Everyone was filled with awe at the many wonders and signs performed by the apostles. And the believers were together, and they had everything in common. They sold property and possessions to give to anyone who had need. And every day they continued to meet together in the temple courts. They broke bread together in their homes and ate together with glad and sincere hearts. And in chapter 4, it says a little bit more about their life together. It says all the believers were in one heart and mind. They had a unity that they shared together. No one claimed any of their possessions that were their own, but they shared everything they had. With great power, the apostles continued to testify to the resurrection of the Lord Jesus. This was the content of their preaching, the gospel message that they were sharing. And it was this message, as people received it, that it transformed them and it transformed their relationships with one another. And it continues, and it says, God's grace was so powerfully at work in them all that there were no needy persons among them. It sounds almost too good to be true, doesn't it? I know there have been many authors over the years that have dreamt and planned and thought about a utopia where somehow by human achievement and reason we could get together and solve all the problems so that everyone could live together in unity and peace. Except that so many times it's been tried and so many times it's failed. I think what the believers were discovering was the possibility of living as new creations in community according to the gospel. Because friends, when we are transformed completely by the gospel of Jesus, when we understand that the resurrection power is available to us now, the same power that raised Jesus from the dead, that is available to us to live and to tap into each day, we discover we don't need to get all of the power and resources ourselves, trying to accumulate and preserve ourselves. And when we look at what God provides for us, that we always will realize there's enough, that God provides just what we need, just in time. So we are 2,000 years after this period of time, and there have been times in Christian communities where this kind of unity has been discovered and lived into, and it's being called forth from us again today. It's possible with God. I was just walking in the neighborhood today, or earlier this week, and I came across a new little shop that opened up just around the corner, and they make all kinds of neat little foods, and one of the things that they make is crackers. And so I got this cracker. This is one single cracker. It's the size of my head. And I thought, that's pretty cool. And I immediately began to realize that this is the kind of thing that the disciples would share together when they would gather together in their homes. They would have bread and then they would break it and they would share it with each other. And This doesn't look like a Nabisco kind of cracker. This is something that's been made by hand, that is gourmet. In fact, it's got different kinds of spices and flavors in it. It's actually very tasty. I had one earlier. And it actually helps me, like if I just say, hey, I just ate one cracker. That's kind of, sounds good. But isn't this also what we do when we share in communion? We come together, we share and are invited to Jesus' table where he is the host for us, and we break bread together acknowledging that it is Christ's body broken for us, his blood that is shed for us, for our salvation and for the unity of the church, so that we might live into that gospel promise to realize that with Jesus' power, it will help us be good friends. I pray today that you can be a good friend to someone else and that God can use you to share goodness and peace. Peace be with you, friends.